Hello there. Thanks again for watching or listening to VIP Boxing Bell to Bell. We're on episode 115 now. Been going for a fair amount of time, and we enjoy it. It's a laugh. We have a bit of fun, and we talk boxing, which we all love. You're watching on YouTube, leave us a review, and great if you're listening on iTunes and Spotify. I think you can leave reviews on those things. I know you can iTunes. I'm not sure about Spotify. You know me, Steve Lillis. You know John Evans, and during 115 episodes, one of the guests we always seem to go back to, he's been on more than most. He's one of our favourites, and we admit it. He's a man who cares he cares as much for boxing as he does his own career. It's former British Featherweight champion, Ryan Walsh. Ryan, thanks again for coming on.
Always a pleasure to be talking to you, lads. Yeah. And you are right. I do love this thing that we seem to all be mad on, the idea of boxing. I do love it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but you moan about it and you're drawn to it. It's like you've been going on a fair amount of time now, and you're still drawn to it. And when are you going to box again?
It's looking like September is the most likeliest that we've between me and Graham we've come to the conclusion that'll be something. I don't know if you've seen it. The Peacock are doing their own type of shows,
yes.
And I'm hoping to go and have a go at that and go from there. I don't think I'll retire from boxing. I think I'll know that my reactions are good and that'll be the end of that. But when my reactions are good and I'm in good health and I can pass the medical, I'll be wanting to fight. I'm only 15 years a pro. I had hardly any amateurs. I've had hardly any pros. In another time, I'd had a lot more pro fights and a lot more amateurs. So it's plenty of time to be successful in this sport for me, I'm sure of it.
I'll tell you what, if you turn the clock back and you were a professional in the 50s and 60s, you'd have been retired because you'd have been boxing 12, 13 times a year in 10 and 15 rounders.
I think that's what it is, Steve. I don't think I've had my fill. I think there's still something. There's a fighter out there, Ricky Burns. He seems like he just hasn't had his fill. I just don't have my fill. And he's been in a lot bigger fights, definitely had more rounds, and just haven't had my fill of this yet. So
I'll tell you what, Walsh and Burns would be a good fight at lightweight.
This is what Liam wanted himself, to be fair. Yeah. Liam said to me, right. He said, he'd just done a boxing news thing recently. It was really, I know some of the things he says, but the way he said it and the way it was written was brilliant. Because there's an honesty there that anyone who understands boxing understands it's quite rare. And he was saying that he didn't want to fight anybody, but there's a few fights that I think with Liam, Stephen Smith and Ricky Burns are two fights that would always be good fights anytime, even now.
Yeah. I tell you, you're rare, aren't you, Ryan? Because a lot of people who've been in your position and fought in your type of fights, the thought of going on one of these afternoon Peacock shows, the turn my nose about it, but it just shows how much you actually love the business. Love us. Yeah. Well, maybe not the business.
Not the business, because I was talking to Liam about this. I don't think there's any fighter in Britain who'd pair to fight Ronnie Clark, and that's what I did before my world title fight. I paired to fight Ronnie Clark. It cost me money, but because I believe in something, I believe in myself for a start. I backed myself, and I didn't know it was going to lead to a world title fight. I can't lie about it. I never would. But I had faith that I'd lead to a British title fight, which it did. It made me mandatory. But I had to pay for that fight. I had to pay. It cost me my medical. It cost me whatever ticket money I got paid for him. But that's how much I love this idea, because, to be honest with you, lads, I actually don't know what else I can do. These weren't made for very much. I'll tell you now, I'm not very good at DIY. These are very limited what they can do, and I love it. So if you love something, you find something and love it to death. And I think that's what I've done with boxing.
Yeah, and just touch on your brothers there before we crack on. I saw that interview with Liam in Boxing News, and you jogged my memory about the Ricky Burns sort of fight he'd still have. Have we seen the end of Michael as a boxer, the head of the clan?
Oh,
he suddenly pops up somewhere in a fight, and no one knows about it. I get Boxing News, and Michael Walsh has had a fight.
Honestly, he's that's 1 in a billion, that man. So I'm not going to say anything about Michael other than anything's possible. I don't think he should. I mean, he's had his last fight. Someone actually went the distance with him. That should have been enough for him, because in his prime, I don't think that guy would have went 3 rounds. So, and he's a little bit older than us. Not that he'll have it. If you tell Michael he's older than us, he won't have it. He's still 35. That's what he's telling me. Honestly, he's mad.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not going to tell Michael Walsh he's older than 35, and I'll get on very well with him. And John Evans is a braver man than me, and he's not going to. But what we'll do, we'll press on with a podcast now. John, you've got your clock and your bell ready.
Yeah, Ryan's got the perfect T-shirt, hasn't he? I've noticed it, Ryan.
This is what I'm saying to the kids all the time, and they hate it, but I love it.
Right, round one. I'm going to start us off this week, and it's about Joshua Buatsi. I don't know how many he's out on Sky this week, back on Sky. It seems they're building him as a blue ribbon fighter. What made me think of this topic? I was watching the football yesterday afternoon, and in between the adverts was traders for Joshua Buatsi. So Sky obviously had big plans of him. You know, that's the sort of a trailer you can't buy. You know, maybe they want him as their blue ribbon fighter. He's meeting an unbeaten but carefully matched, dare I say it, guy this weekend, Polish opponent Pavel Stepian. But how many times have we said, and we're going to say it yet again, Joshua Buatsi has got to have a big performance this weekend. It's almost like the career that's never taken off. You know, he's had these good wins recently over Bolotniks after he won the golden belt thing, the MTK one, or Pavel Stepian, and then they're good wins. But, you know, you look at someone like Dan Aziz, who's been a pro a couple of years shorter, and he's better known than Buatsi. It's just, what do you think he's got to do to finally get out there and get known? I mean, he's number 2 at the WBO. He's ranked with the BC and BA. He's number 1, he might be. And he's 8 years going. And for 8 years, we've been waiting for this big performance from him. When are we going to get it?
Go on, Ryan.
Well, for me, it's funny you say I can't believe he's been a pro for 8 years. I think I was there on his debut. I think when I
Or he's in his 8th year, sorry.
Yeah, it's maddening because I really think he's a talent. I think he's got a bit of everything. But when you're in a domestic division that he's in, I think he's got to cry for the name domestically. He should be winning yard. He probably should have wanted Callum Johnson when he was still on the scene. He's now got this. It's such a good, solid division. You got Callum Smith. He needs to get, for me, you can go and get these foreign people that nobody knows about, but for your star, you only have to look recently. Look at when Ben was going to fight Eubank. Look at when Smith just fought Eubank. These all domestic UK fights, how you push your star to everyone going, well, I now want to see you in a world title fight. That's what he needs. He needs a big British showdown to see what he's got and see what he is. I'm not really sure. I don't know if the gap's grown. Because at one point there, I thought he was a surefire world title contender.
Oh, yeah. 6 years ago, 2 years into Buatsi, I thought he was a dead cert. And I think he should have been a household name years and years ago. Terribly, terribly promoted. I was there when he fought Craig Richards in his only domestic clash down at the O2. That was 2 lads from the same neighbourhood in an arena a stone's throw from the house, and there was nobody there. You know, it was like a couldn't care less fight. I think more people were there for the undercard. I think it's a crying shame. And hopefully he gets rid of this guy, we get him back in the ring quick, make the Aziz fight, and go from there. Because I think he's playing catch up, Buatsi. It's a crazy thing to say because he's so talented, but he's so far behind where he should be.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Round 2, Ryan, rematches.
Oh.
It's a massive thing that I'm really happy to start seeing. And Eubank, he's a throwback in so many ways. He demanded this. And I was talking to my trainer, not actually Graham, his son, who's also my trainer, Joe Everett. And he was like, well, he didn't have nothing else to do. And I thought, this is Eubank. He's got the name that makes him do whatever he needs. You know, he doesn't have to. But this is what the sport needs, and this is what hurts the sport. When we was talking at the start, at the top of this, saying I'd had 13 fights a year, I'd have fought the same man 3 times. I love rematches. Usually the result goes the same way, and in that fight we'll see. But this should be. I always like the best of 3. Anyone with any sort of the people who are listening to this now, and especially you two men know better than ever. When boxing was at its head out, it was actually mob ruled, and the rule of 3 was in for everyone. 1 fight we knew the winner, the 2nd fight we knew the winner, the 3rd fight was the 3rd one, the one that anyone can win. And I know it's not a great promotion to boxing, but it's the truth. We used to get trilogies like, well, I mean, we had to cry when there was a trilogy for Wilder and Fury. It was a big thing that we hadn't had one in 30, 40. It's crazy. Boxing needs that like best of 2, 3. I think if you beat it, best of 2 minimum in some senses, because I just think. If you see a good fight, you want to see it again. I mean, if you look, you can go through the Gatti, Ward. Everyone loved all 3. Barrera, Morales. The list is endless. When you get good fights, I like to see him again. the difference with the Eubank Smith one, which is kind of crazy, is a knockout loss. But I'm happy that he's setting the tone for other fighters. Rematches should be back.
I'm not sure. I agree with you there on a lot of that. I mean, the rematch at the Trilodies of Wilder Fury and is brilliant and great fights will be rematches by public demand. But I think it holds up careers and titles for too long. And Smith Eubank, the rematch, it doesn't do anything for me. It was so conclusive, in my opinion, the first fight. Why should there be a second fight? Why can it be any different?
I like rematches. If it's one-sided, the first one, I don't think it has to be immediate. I think, look at Barrera Morales. It went over years, didn't it? They fought in 3 different divisions with years in between each one. And that rivalry, they hated each other for years. Marquez Vasquez went for quite a long while as well. And Bolt Holyfield went for years. I like rematches when they stew them. I know a lot of people say when a fight's over, they should shake hands and be gentlemen. I don't agree with that. I like a bit of bitterness and a grudge to be held. And I like rematches that go for a long time like that. Rivalries that last.
Yeah,
it's just rare to see nowadays. That's what I've caught on to, that men are going, you know what, all right, you beat me, but you're going to have to do that again. And that's what Eubank said, and that's why I admire, because all 3 of us are going to be shocked if he can do something different. I'm shocked that Liam won in that fashion. I could see Liam winning possibly, but I had all the favouritism, especially with the rehydration. It was all for Eubank. And that result was why I love boxing, because forget underdogs. It's the stories. It's the we get shocked. And judging by this, we could be shocked again, all 3 of us.
But Ryan, do you not think sometimes these... Oh, sorry, John's stopping me there. I want to go back to this next time you're on. Round 3, John, and TV clashes, I think, when you said show clashes to me earlier.
Stupid, isn't it? We've just had a bank holiday weekend without a fight.
Yeah.
You go to the end of May, we've got 3 on one night, and the promoters are actually talking about staggering the main event times to watch. I think I've spoken about this before. It just makes no sense for anybody. You know, boxing still, people think it's a major sport. It's not. The same people go to a lot of the shows. And by having 3 shows on one night, you're restricting the actual live audience. You're restricting the viewing audience on TV because it's fragmented. So many young fighters get overlooked because people are looking for the big names. And it doesn't boost anybody's profile. It does nothing for the sport by having so many big fights on the same night. It hinders the sport, if anything. Some people should be looking to go Sundays if there's nothing else on that weekend when you've got a captive audience at home. It makes no sense. It's just egos with the promoters and the TV companies. And it's hurting people rather than building them, I think.
I couldn't agree more, John. And it goes back to Buatsi. Could he be a victim of exactly what you just said? When Eddie's at his prime time, Frank Warren has never gone away. He's always been there. In fact, best example I can give you, when I fought Bellotti, he was on the undercard of White and Chisora, and on the same night you had Warrington and Frampton. As a fan, I was sat in the change room watching that fight, thinking, I want to be out there live and watching this, and it was wrong. And boxing always hurts itself. And victims, you've got the best victim in Buatsi. Could that not be the case with him? How is he not a household name? He's an Olympic silver medalist, and maybe he was a victim of this crisscrossing and stupidity by the egomaniacs, which are promoters and TV companies.
Yeah, look, again, I can't agree more. It's interesting that George Warren and Eddie Hearn have spoken. I think Eddie said the other day that is it Conlon's going to be in the ring at 9 o'clock, Lara Wood 10 o'clock, and they're hoping that Sky are going to fall in line and go a bit later with a Coley, Billum Smith. But you know what? Even then, it's still going to divide the sport because undercard fighters aren't going to get watched. And advertisers who pay good money to advertise during boxing are going to get viewing figures for it, not going to be good. It's just crazy. And this weekend, where you've had a dark weekend for boxing, with nothing on at all, is crazy. I go back to the I've mentioned this so often when this comes up, to the 80s when in London you couldn't promote within 14 days of a show. Just they could sell tickets.
No, it's madness. I mean, perfect example there. If we're putting Billum Smith on 11 because of his other fights at 9 and 10, Isaac Chamberlain's British title fight won't get seen because people will be watching a main event on another channel.
But I'll tell you what, Isaac, that's probably going to be at 10:15, 10 o'clock, clashing with Lara and Wood, which is A rematch, I do agree with, by the way, because it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah,
There you go.
Round 4. This is one. I want to hear from both of you, particularly Ryan. Do you think that trainers have too much of a say in boxers' careers? I'm from a belief, you know, I refer myself as a dinosaur often enough, as where promoters should promote, managers should manage, trainers should train. And what made me think this about the clout they have, Joshua was saying he needs approval from Derek James, you know, whether he should fight in the summer, his new trainer. I just find that bewildering that, you know, I just don't agree with it. He should, if Eddie Hearn wants him to fight this summer and he's fit, he should be fighting. And this isn't a knock at trainers. What I will say is that many trainers don't earn enough money. So this isn't a knock. I just think too many of them are getting too much influence over when and who a fighter boxes. I want to hear from both of you, but you particularly, Ryan, there.
It's all about relationship and the individual. I think when we talk about Anthony Joshua, we talk about an absolute anomaly. For a man who looks so big, strong, and powerful, he's mentally fragile. He's the most mentally fragile human I've ever seen. What he done at the end of the Usyk fight was mind-blowing. For a man so big and strong, asking another man, how do you do that? That's all in here. And I was lucky enough to be born and bred from a man who really understood in here. And he could do with sometimes. No, my dad used to tell us this: you can't put there what God left out, and that's what my answer would have been if I was Usyk. You can get as big and as strong looking as you want, but in between here is where you're at. And as far as it goes with trainers, that's another sideshow to the mental fragility of a human. When you need this man to tell you, now he should be a counsellor and an advisor, but the buck stops with the fighter. The fighter pairs the trainer. The fighter pairs the manager. So I'm the boss. All I'm asking you is to help me be a better boss. Well, how do you do that? You look for advice and counsel. And some trainers do have big clout. And I know I can't even say it's for a fact that when Amir Khan got into when he was on his path to becoming a world champion, he changed the game in my mind, because a lot of people think a trainer gets 10%. Well, not Amir Khan. Amir Khan put his first trainer on, the Jamaican lad who died. What's his name?
Oliver Harrison.
That was it. He put him on like a real small percent, because if you read the boxing rules, it's up to 10%.
That's
so
right.
He took the reins and said, I'm the boss. You're going to take this percent, yes or no? And he's done the first 15, 20 fights or something like that. And it's, again, individual preference. And it depends what you got. Me, I got a trainer for life. I've said this on record.
Yeah.
I'll say it here. I got a boxing dad in Graham Everett. My dad trusted us with Graham. He's my boxing dad. I was lucky enough to bump into someone else, not on the other side of the world, but 4,000 miles away, who's the same in Manuel. The reason I am so into them two humans, they love boxing as much as me. They're there all the time. And if you're lucky enough to find them people, you've got to stick with them, stick with their kids. But ultimately, they'll ask you. It should be you need that, I think the word symbiotic relationship. It's for your both. The good of the fighter, the good. But have they got too much clout? In some cases, they do. If the fighter allows them to have that clout, again, it's all individual for me, Steve. It's not one way or the other. And you know what annoys me? If you do that, if you're a true team and you've got what I have had my whole career, thankfully, touch wood, I've had blood and I've had family and Graham, okay? When I lost, we lost. If you watch us, when I won, we won. And that got one of my happiest moments in boxing was when Liam won his British title. I was the British champion. If you've got that relationship, maybe they have got a lot of clout.
Yeah.
Round 5.
Yeah,
you're going to carry on here. Something we spoke about last week, but it's important to get your opinion because you've been close up with this guy, Gervonta, and the rest of the lightweights. So something your brother got mentioned last week on here, I'm going to come to in a minute, what John said.
Well, he's just a special elite fighter. When we were looking at him, I was thinking, yeah, Liam, you'll give him some gut busters, you'll show him what he's about, and then fight after fight, he shows that he's got elite IQ, which Liam picked up on. He's like a cat in the ring, which I couldn't see, but he's so fast. He's got unbelievable power. There's a TikTok going about when he's 6-year-old, holding his left hand tight and dropping that like he was dropping Garcia the other day. He's a little, in the nicest sense, freak of a human who's, because let's have it right, he ain't no big lightweight. I've seen him up close. He ain't not much bigger than me, if he is bigger than me. But the speed, the power, the IQ that man possesses, he's exciting. But the craziest thing about the whole thing I'm saying, we still don't even know if he's the best lightweight. We don't know. Because I've always backed Lomachenko as a fellow southpaw to be able to maybe manoeuvre him, because you're going to have to knock Lomachenko out, I think, without the size difference. I know Tio done it, but that was so weird. I'm really excited for the winner of Herney and Lomachenko to fight Tank. He's something about Tank. You just have to keep your eyes on him, and he's special. And up close, I don't know if I knew it. I knew he must have been special to deal with Liam the way he dealt with him, because I really think Liam's world class. I thought that a long time, and this guy was just that. There's another level. Guys, we mentioned it before, I'm sure, about like you get elite fighters, and they're just something else. They're just, is it God-given talent? I don't know what it is, but they're special. Good to watch, apart from when they're whacking your brother. I did enjoy that one bit.
John.
Yeah, I love him. We were saying last week, Ryan, I was down at a Copperbacks that night, and there was a feeling around that Liam could do it. But when, from sitting 3 feet away from Tank, he's special, isn't he? Because we spoke about it last week, just a lightweight fight I'd like your opinion on. Kambosos and Maxi Hughes, Ryan. How do you weigh that one up?
Well, this is going to be so interesting, because Kambosos is actually perfect for Maxi. Yeah. Maxi gets to get on his bike and say, come on then. So I'm thinking that is going to be a very tight fight. And Maxi Hughes proved to me that what he does, he's world class at what he does, because to beat Kid Galahad, even though when I watched that fight, I don't know, it was one of them fights, it could have been a draw. This is what the Kambosos fight is going to be like, but Kambosos is going to be more. I think Maxi's going to be really successful. I'm going to say, I'm going to say Maxi's going to do it on points. I do, I think he'll get so much success on, because he's quite one of his best assets. Kambosos is his willingness to engage quite wildly. Well, that's bread and butter for Maxi, and I think Maxi will be very successful in that fight and shock a lot of people. He's already shocked me with a Galahad win, and he shocked me on the night with me, because I'd sparred him prior to that and I'd watched Liam fight him. And you have to be a world class, solid fighter to beat him. Simple as that. And I think Kambosos is all that, but stylistically, it's a really good fight for Maxi. It's a fight that, for once, because I've been backing against Maxi since Liam beat him. Like, he won't win. He beat John Carroll. He beat that Mexican. He beat me. He beat Galahad. The best win for me. Galahad was a cracking win.
Brilliant. Yeah. Right, final round over to you, John, and the biggest fight.
Yeah, because Tank and Garcia was such a big event, and it seemed to capture the imagination of other people outside boxing. So what's the biggest fight that can be made now in the sport? Now, I was thinking about it. I think Tank and Shakur is the best fight that can probably be made in the next 5 years, but it's not there yet. Canelo's not really got an opponent who I think could make it the biggest fight in the sport. And I keep coming back to Fury Joshua. I think Fury Joshua might just be the biggest 100. Fight in the sport still.
Yeah, look, I've got Fury Joshua, Fury Usyk, or the winners of the 2 heavyweight fights in Saudi Arabia in December. Yeah. That's the biggest fight. I think whoever wins the 2 fights there, even if it's Wilder and Fury, and we have Fury Wilder 4, I think that becomes the biggest fight, because that show in Saudi Arabia, for a lot of reasons, in December, and everyone's telling me it's going to happen, will have the eyes of the world on it for a lot of reasons. Not they're just 2 great heavyweight fights. There'll be all the controversy over Saudi Arabia, or everyone will be watching that night, and the 2 winners of that is the biggest fight in the sport.
I honestly can't ever get past an all British UK fight between the Gypsy King and AJ, because we've wanted it for so long. Regardless of AJ losing, that's not lost any steam. It'll be the biggest monetary, because you're talking about 2 of the best right now promoted heavyweights, and more than anything, this thing of ours has been going since 1885. The heavyweight champion of the world, it still means something. And I'm a huge UFC fan. I know you are too, John, but no prize is greater in all of sports to be the king of the heavyweight division. And it's wicked. It's a wicked time as a British boxing fan to say, well, because I've just recently watched a TikTok and it showed every heavyweight world champion from 1885 to present. And the Yanks have had it for ages. The Americans have had enough. We've got our guy. And I do think Fury is just that. You talk about elite, he's that as a heavyweight. He's the one who is the best of the pack. And that fight just touches every single thing you want. Because you've got the muscle, man. You've got the fat Gypsy King, because come on, he's only wears, he's a big lad, and he'll be slapping his belly, and it just sells so big. That is, I talked to Liam before we come on today, and he said it straight away. He said he can't see past that, and never can I. I would love to see that fight.
Can you time then? when there's been a British fighter, let alone two, in the biggest fight boxing could make. Because when you go back to Lewis Holyfield, you had De La Hoya around the time, and he was in mega fights with Trinidad, and he was always there, but not quite the biggest, wasn't he? I can't think of a time when there's been a British fighter who could take part in the most eagerly anticipated fight on the planet. And it could well be Fury Joshua with two Brits. It's unheard of times, really.
It's true. The last time I think the most excited I've ever been at a fight was Hatton and Mayweather. That was a British fight, but
Mayweather could be it, yeah.
Hatton Mayweather was one. Honestly, I was lucky enough to be there ringside, in the venue, and that was electric. And I looked at my brother and I said, I wouldn't trade this ticket for the world. But an all British fight, could you imagine? They could sell that in two stadiums. AJ and Fury right now. Wembley won't even be big enough because every man and his dog would want to see that fight. Even though I think anyone with that boxing IQ knows Fury's all wrong for him, I still want to see it because there is my brother who I fancy knows a little bit about this sport. He still says of all the fighters, AJ could be the one with that stiff enough style to possibly chin him. But I think the guy's near and you can't really knock him out. If you're going to give him a chin, and let's say it's a boxing game, you have to give the Gypsy King a 9900 chin. This man resurrected in front of us all. When he fought Wilder, fight one, my brother has won thousands. I reckon it's between 6 and 12, we'll say, £1,000 off the local gypsies. And when he got knocked down on that night, we're all in the room together with 6 or 7 gypsies. We're like, oh, no, Michael, now you've lost your money. And then it was a draw. Unbelievable, huh? But that was the moment I thought, this guy is just a bit different. Because he woke up from the dead, and he is a religious man. So maybe he's got. If you really believe, as you think, so shall you be.
I tell you what, before we let you go, Ryan, I just want to get a quick word with a topic we never covered tonight. Ryan, John Ryder going to fight Canelo.
Oh well, you know what? John Ryder's been shocking me since he lost to Billy Joe, didn't he?
Billy Joe at the Copper Box, yeah.
And you thought, well, that might be. And that guy is a real Rocky story. He keeps getting the wins. And let's have it right, because I'm a huge Callum Smith fan. He gave Callum Smith, I think the punch stats go for him. That was that close. He showed. Yeah, he's another similar, only in the way he just will not go away. It's like Maxie Hughes. These men who say, you know what, this is me, this is my style. And they're very difficult to beat. And they're very difficult more than anything to look good against. And obviously, we're talking Canelo. Canelo's really special. He can adapt. He does things. He can fight when he wants. You know what? John Ryder, a southpaw, he's always had a funny style, John Ryder. He's one of them lads who looks like he's beating himself up before even, he's whacked himself and he does his roll and he's a southpaw. And, I'll be rooting for him, obviously, because he's a Brit. It's a massive, massive leap from whatever he's fought, to be fair. Proof is the way Canelo dealt with Callum Smith. You know what? Stranger things have happened in this beautiful sport, this unknown, crazy sport.
Have you got
what a tough ask, eh? I know it's the cliche that comes out. It'll be the best British fighter win of all time. I think this one might do it, particularly in Mexico as well. But the week he's going to have a horrendous week, isn't he, Ryder? He'll be messed around, pulled from pillar to post, told a load of bullshit, and he's going to have a real problem week, and it'll be an intimidating thing. And if he manages to do it, then
the altitude, the heat, they're going to be knocking on his door before the weigh-in. They're going to be doing all, if he gets a good night's sleep, no chance.
Yeah, but
he's going to have it the hardest route, and it would be.
I can't see him winning. It would be the greatest win by a Brit. I can see something. It has shades of that Liam Smith fight against Canelo, where he's never going to win it, but he's never disappointing in the fight, and then it'll catch up with him about 8-9 rounds, but he'll lose nothing in defeat.
Yeah. I certainly don't think he'll be embarrassed, Ryder.
No. He's way too hard, way too stubborn. He shouldn't even be here. He actually shouldn't even be here. If he just would have if you read the script of boxing, you have these tries, you fail at British title level. He's now fighting in the world title fight against one of the best fighters on the planet right now, the biggest fighter on the planet right now, in Mexico. Talk about Cinderella, man.
Would you love that, Ryan? Would you like that going over? Would you like that going over to right into the Lions? Then that it can't get any bigger than that, can it?
Exactly. And you know what? When you've got that burden of nothing to lose, off your back, and you're like, well, let's go. What have you actually got? What has he got to? Everything to gain, and more than anything, I think me and my brothers always, when Liam's fight was made with Tank, I was screaming, let's go to Baltimore, let's go to Baltimore, let's go to Baltimore, because I know my brother. I'll tell you the one thing that he didn't mention in that interview. I walked out with my brother. 97% of the 8,000 there or 10,000 or whatever it was wanted my brother to win. Yeah. It was touching, genuinely. I thought, wow, they love my brother. They're wanting to win. There was about 6 people, and they're all in Tank's team who wanted Tank to win. It was nearly overwhelming, to be honest with you, lads. And I know my brother. We're better when the backs against, when our backs against the wall, we're better. We'd already won entering the ring. From the genuine love and hope and expectation of the people coming in, it kind of dampened us. We need that. If you look at our careers, anyone talks to us behind the scenes, we definitely don't go with the title. We always go against it. And it's not on purpose. It's just that we do it our own way. And he needed, like Liam would have done better in the Lions Den, one thing's for sure, because I think it'd have spiked him more. He'd have been probably a little bit more angry getting into the ring. But I know my brother, I know how I felt. It was genuinely, if you was there, you must have felt it, that there was a real nice feeling. It's a fight.
I tell you what, because considering Tank was pretty unknown at the time, it was a big atmosphere that night, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think there was an expectation. He's going to show him. This guy's down. Yeah. He's back by Mayweather. But God, has he gone on since? He's a special fighter. And the way he beat Pedraza, you don't realise how good of that win is until Pedraza goes 12 with Loma and doesn't go away and becomes a world champion again at another weight. Beat Liam Smith and Stephen Smith, sorry. Pedraza's a world-class fighter, fringe elite fighter. And then look at the way he dealt with him at 22 years old. He's in the nicest sense of the word, he's an absolute freak of the sport because he is that good. He's a southpaw. He used a free strike. He's the new Marvin Hagler. Black southpaw, and he can fight. Yeah. And he's super fast. He might even be the 4 strikes.
The other thing, Steve, I know he did a lot that week, and Ryan, you'll have been around him. He's actually all right. He's an all right sort of lad. I used to speak to him fairly often before he went with Mayweather, and they seemed to take him away and try and create this personality around him.
Yeah.
But he's a proper street kid, but he's actually an all right guy as well, isn't he?
Full credit to him. At the end of the fight, World Cup, it's just business. And you know what? It's just business. There was whatever there was annoyance before the fight, which weren't really to do with him, it was Mayweather. I actually hurt Mayweather's feelings because as a big boxing fan, I said something to him that he didn't like, and it's the truth. And I'm glad we brought this up. I said to Mayweather a fact that he didn't like, and it's the truth. I said, you're a world champion who's going to be going into a change room with your fighter, and you actually can't advise him because you've never been abroad and an aware fight as a world champion to defend your title. And did that annoy him? That upset him because it's the truth. Real world champions, and not real world, I shouldn't say that, but old school world champions used to go around the world. Look at Ali. He'd fight England, he'd fight in Africa, he'd go all around America. This guy fought in Atlantic. You know his answer was to me, Steve, John? I fought in Atlantic City as the B-side against. Come on, man.
But in America, moving out of their state is the people in America don't have passports. Going out their state's a trip for them. But
this is it. This is it.
It's a state. Anyway, what can I say? Ryan, brilliant to have you on. We've got to get Liam on sometime. Next time we'll get you and Liam together on it.
Yeah. I'd love Liam to come on. He would thoroughly enjoy it. He's just so anti-social media. He doesn't have any social media. I know. It's WhatsApp. You'll get him on WhatsApp now and then, and he's just so. But he would love this. You know this.
We'll get him on it.
But if you said he weren't a podcast, Steve, and you two rung him up to talk boxing, he'd be the happiest man alive. He could talk to you all day.
We'll just get you filmed. We'll get you both on together, I think. Our last one for the summer, that we have a month off, but middle of July. We'll get you on the last one then and just chat boxing. Won't have any topics. We'll just chat.
He would love that. And you know what? I want to mention it to him because I love talking boxing with him anyway. I talked to him today when he was doing it. I was like asking him the questions, and it was nice when you agree. We've all unanimously agreed Jeff Fury because it's just huge. But yeah, I'd love to hear him talk about it.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
He'd buzz off it, lads. He would. I always do.
We'll get him on when you're in July. And say thanks so much for coming on, Ryan. John, thanks as always, John. And I'll speak to you later in the week if you need any help with your other thing, John. Top man.
No worries, Steve. Thanks you for that. Everyone. Nice one, Ryan.
Thanks everyone for watching this.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, lads.
Thank you.
For all boxing info, news, and latest interviews, amateur and pro across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.